Monday, February 13. God's provision for the poor. In their writings, the Bible authors included many of God's provisions for the poor, the strangers, the widows, and the fatherless. We have records of this that go all the way back to Mount Sinai, as we read in Exodus 23, verses 10 and 11. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its produce, but the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. In like manner you shall do with your vineyard and your olive grove. Read Leviticus 23, verse 22, and Deuteronomy 15, verse 11. However different the context may be from that of our lives today, what principles should we take away from these verses? Leviticus 23, verse 11. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field when you reap, nor shall you gather any gleaning from your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God. And Deuteronomy chapter 15 and verse 11. For the poor will never cease from the land, therefore I command you, saying, you shall open your hand wide to your brother, to your poor and your needy in your land. It generally is understood that brother here refers to fellow Israelites or fellow believers. We also think of them as the worthy poor, or the least of these, my brethren. The Psalms give direction on how we should treat those in need. In Psalm 82, verses 3 and 4, we read, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, free them from the hand of the wicked. This passage indicates our involvement in ways beyond just providing food. Then there are promises to those who help the needy. He who gives to the poor will not lack, we read in Proverbs 28:27. The king who judges the poor with truth, his throne will be established forever, Proverbs 29, verse 14. And King David noted in Psalm 41, verse 1, blessed is he who considers the poor, the Lord will deliver him in time of trouble. This, then, always had been a priority in ancient Israel, even if at times the people lost sight of it. In contrast, even in more modern times, particularly in England, under the impact of what has been known as social Darwinism, many thought that not only was there no moral imperative to help the poor, but also that it was in fact wrong to do so. Instead, following the forces of nature in which the strong survive at the expense of the weak, social Darwinists believed that it would be detrimental to society to help the poor, the sickly, and the indigent, because if they multiplied, they would only weaken the social fabric of the nation as a whole. However cruel, this thinking was the logical outgrowth of belief in evolution and the false narrative it proclaims. And so to finish today, how should the gospel, the idea that Christ died for everyone, impact how we treat everyone, regardless of who they are? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful. And here is a disclaimer. Contents of these lessons are not intended to be financial advice, but is general commentary based on biblical principles. The reader is encouraged to seek competent professional advice which will suit their particular personal situation.